In the case of the wife, in Genesis chapter 3 at verse 16, very interestingly, after Adam and Eve have taken of the forbidden fruit, their eyes have been opened and they're now in sin, the Lord God in chapter 3 begins to deal with that and actually brings curses and gives curses. He says to the woman, I will greatly multiply your sorrow and your conception. In pain you shall bring forth children. Your desire shall be for your husband. He shall rule over you. In pain you shall bring forth your children. And so when a woman goes through her birth pangs and she's about to give birth, most definitely she experiences those pains. Of course she does. Now, my sister for many years helped young women prepare for childbirth, and she would teach them certain techniques to reduce the pain, but she couldn't take it away. When Marie and I were having our first baby, and we decided that I should be there in that room when she delivered and all, we went to a class called the Lamaze class. I guess many of you have done the same, you know. And a Lamaze class cost me, I think, $25 to go to this class. And so as I went to it, I sat there with all the rest of the husbands, kind of starry-eyed, wondering what are we supposed to do, and got the instruction, and I felt pretty equipped. And then I go on into that room with Marie, and she's in labor, and my wife went through 33 hours of labor, and then they put this... They put this monitor, a fetal monitor on her and all of this, and they were timing her contractions, and she was going through that, and I was feeling like, yeah, I'm trained. And so I was sitting in the chair, and she's there inside of that little on that little bed there and all, and I'm looking at the monitor, and it's just going up like that, and I'm going, wow, you know. And Marie is one of these who doesn't let you know that she's upset, and she didn't tell me. As a matter of fact, the nurse came in and spoke to me and said, your wife is in a lot of pain. I'm going to have to give her some medication because she won't admit she's hurting. And I said, oh, really? And she goes, yeah. So she had to give Marie a shot because Marie kept refusing, saying, I'm not in pain. But at this point, I'm watching that monitor and all, and I thought, okay, man, it's time to put your training into gear here. And I remember I was sitting in this little chair, and I scooted up next to her bed, and I'm watching that monitor, and I said, okay, honey, it's time for the hee-hee. You know, because there's a hee-hee, ha-ha, hoo-hoo. You guys know what I'm talking about. It's got a hee-hee. And she looks at me, this precious, saintly woman of God, and she grits her teeth. She grit her teeth at me, and she said, shut up. Sit down. Be quiet. And I'm sitting there going, I blew $25 for this. If I wanted to be yelled at, I'd stayed home, you know. Ain't nothing you can do about it. You can hee-hee, ha-ha, hoo-hoo. You're going to hurt. And that's just the way it is. The Bible makes it very clear. And it doesn't matter what you do. In pain you shall bring forth children. But he goes on to say, your desire shall be for your husband. He shall rule over you. The desire. Your longing shall be for your husband. Now, some would say that gives insight into the dedication that Eve had for Adam, the love that she had for him. There weren't any other choices, by the way. There was only Adam. But anyway, that dedication to him. And so they'd say that by God's design, every woman has a longing for her husband. It's interesting, though, that word longing there is also found in Genesis chapter 4, verse 7. And in Genesis chapter 4, verse 7, that's a passage where the Lord God is speaking to Cain, he was going to kill his brother Abel, and he was upset at that time. And God said, sin has a desire for you. Sin wants to rule over you, is what God was saying. And so there is a sense that a woman has a nurturing element to her that can very well border on and sometimes cross the border into dominating, into moving and trying to say, this is how you're going to be, this is what you're going to do, this is how it's going to be. And that can be very difficult in marriage. When you have somebody who's telling you what you're going to do, a wife telling the man what to do, it can be very difficult, and you know that to be true. You know, I think that even the best wife can have a tendency towards wanting to control and to lead. And I've got a great wife, but now that I have to reduce the foods that I eat, the kinds of foods that I eat, my wife is on me, you wouldn't believe it. And I thank God for it. But she is, it's like she has permission now to nurture me. When we first got married, when we first got married, we had our husband-wife talks, and one of the things I can still remember saying to my precious lamb, my precious wife, who is here right now listening to me, was, I already have a mom. I already have a mom. And when I married you, I didn't marry a mother. I married a woman who's my wife. So I can still choose what clothes I want to wear. And I can choose when I want to shave. And I can choose these things. And I will continue doing that. Because, that doesn't look good on you. Well, it may not look good on me, but I like it. And that's how I'm going to wear it. She said, but blue and green doesn't make it. You know what? To me, it does. And you know what I'm talking. I'm trying to be humorous about it. But there are areas that you do have conflict. There's just no doubt about that. And that has to be worked out. So in marriage, how does that work? How does that work? Well, there's an understanding of our roles. There's an understanding of who we are. Of course, submitting is not something that is natural for us. It's actually something we have to learn, and we have to die to ourselves in order to do. But we know that in marriage, submission is actually part of the order that God intends for a home to be run well. Everybody knows that 2 heads on one body is a monster. You have to have a head. You have to have authority. And God has given that authority to the man. In 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 3, Paul said, I would have you to know that the head of every man is Christ. The head of the woman is the man. The head of Christ is God. And so there's an established order, man being created first and then the woman, man being created and the woman being created for him. And God has an established order. And so in a home, you have a leader and you have authority, and that's how God intends it to be. Now, notice how he says in verse 1 that some do not obey the word. When he speaks concerning that, do not obey is another way of saying that they are aggressively disobedient to the commands of God. Some husbands, in other words, have an aggressive disobedience to the things of the Lord. They don't want anything to do with Jesus Christ. And they'll resent you pushing your faith on them. It's not that they're physically abusive. It's that they have no relationship with God and they reject your faith. Sometimes when a woman who has been saved, when she is recently saved, she gets so excited about that, she wants her husband to know.